Good day, Mr. and Mrs. Front Porch. Our topic today is Alec Baldwin, Hollywood star. You may have heard of him.
Wait, isn't it Alec Baldwin?
Didn't I say Alec?
Or you said Alex?
No, it said Alec. It's really confusing these days because Alec Murdoch spells his name Alex, but he calls himself Alec. And it has totally messed me up on Court TV and Alec stories, because we have like 3 or 4 of them that we're covering. And I have to like double think it all the time, but it's Alec Baldwin.
I apologize, Jonesy. My apologies.
I did have to go to speech class. I did have to go to speech class in 2nd grade, which was very embarrassing because of my S's, sibilance, and all that kind of stuff. And recently I did
Did you say syphilis?
You got syphilis?
Sibilance.
In the 6th grade?
That was like 2nd grade or something like that.
2nd grade? Oh, it's even better.
Yeah, and I also
Syphilis
had
in the 2nd grade.
Oh, it was.
That is nothing to clap about, Mr. Jones.
I was considered a special case. You know, it was very embarrassing, especially in my chosen profession. And also,
he got it from clapping the erasers.
Yes, I recently did a voiceover where I just couldn't grasp the term islands. With a D between islands. I just couldn't do it. So you got me there, Al. It's Alec Baldwin.
Island Girl.
Oh, it's a very good song. I like that one a lot. They don't play that much these days. Politically incorrect, I think. Nonetheless,
Which one? Island Girl? Who sang that?
Island Girl's Elton John.
Elton John.
Oh, I don't listen to Elton John. No. He's dead to me.
He lives in Atlanta.
Elton John concert, and he blew out my left ear. He's dead to me. Anytime his song comes on the radio, I turn it off.
Wow. That's a shame.
Out your left ear. Vinnie, you better never come to a concert that I go to. Believe me. Elton John blew out your left ear?
He was playing it too loud. It was part of his never-ending farewell concert series. Yes. And, you know, I'll be honest with you. I thought he's a little full of himself, like doing like
Elton John
ovation, clap and bow after every song. Come on.
He's Elton John, Sir Elton.
Sir Elton.
Now, the difference between you and I is he didn't blow out my ear because I was in the last row at the stadium in Philadelphia. So perhaps you should consider moving your seats to the handicap section.
Yeah, just turn down the volume a little bit, Sir Elton. I mean, I went to see Billy Joel and my ears were fine.
I'm sorry, Grandma. Elton John was too loud for you. Whoa, don't go see Barry Manilow. He's going to be even louder.
Well, why do the kids have to listen to the music so loud these days? It's ridiculous.
If it's too loud, you're too old. And
Good point.
I just turned 62, so I have, I probably have
Happy birthday.
What you say? Huh?
Happy birthday.
I can't hear you. Anyway, I made Al laugh. I like that. That's fun. Anyway, Alec Baldwin, he faced he didn't face a grand jury. They brought some charges to a grand jury. A grand jury indicts a ham sandwich, as you gentlemen say, and he was the grand jury was ready to go forth. But in April of last year, special prosecutors dropped the charges. And now what I'm talking about is this film Rust, which is a Western that he's shooting, no pun intended. And there was a tragedy on the set, an accident, if you will, an incident where 2 people were shot during the filming of the movie. And one was killed. Her name was
Alina Hutchins.
Okay, thank you.
Alina Hutchins, cinematographer, mother, wife, and now dead because of Alec Baldwin.
Well, that's what you say, because of Alec Baldwin. But nonetheless...
Wait a minute. He was holding the gun. He was squeezing the trigger. He was pointing the gun. I think he had something to do with it.
Was he squeezing the trigger?
Yes, he was squeezing the trigger. That's
apparently
the pliers.
The charges were dismissed because they found a malfunction with the gun and said that it could actually go off without squeezing the...
No. What happened was, and there were problems with the prosecution, right? I don't know what's going on in Santa Fe, New Mexico, but they brought in a special prosecutor. They made some errors. They charged him with something, with a law that wasn't passed until after the shooting. So there were problems. But what happened with the gun was tested, and it was tested by the FBI, and they said that it worked. But during the course of testing it, something happened to the gun, and they ended up taking it apart. So Alec Baldwin and his attorneys could not independently test the gun.
Oh, nice.
So that's going to be a big issue if and when this new grand jury listens to the evidence and indicts him. But I just want to go on the record, and I'm pretty confident in saying it. When you to fire a gun, you pretty much have to squeeze the trigger at some point. It doesn't just go off. Like, I know that's what people say a lot. The gun went off. Well, guns don't just go off. Like, you put your finger on the trigger. In this case, I think he pulled the hammer back while he's holding the trigger, and then the hammer goes and fires the weapon.
Well, there was an episode of Get Smart where there was a gun that did not fire from squeezing the trigger, but rather fired from pushing the trigger forward. So that's
what was
yes.
Now, as I recall, that is a fictional show.
Yes, and so is
okay. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't one of these mockumentaries on Netflix.
Hey, Jonesy, don't do Netflix. Jonesy watches his court TV and some baseball, some pro wrestling, stuff like that. But nonetheless, they think they have some new evidence that they can go forth with, and that's from footage from the film, correct?
Yeah. Brand new footage that I guess maybe has been leaked. But you think about it, all the things that he's doing on the set. And I think part of the theory here in the case is not just that Alec Baldwin's holding the gun, not just that he's squeezing the trigger, but all of the safety issues that were on the set flow through him because he was in charge. Number one, in name as the executive producer, but number two, and Al, once you know this, when there's an A-lister on the set in a low-budget movie where he's the executive producer, he's calling all the shots, like literally calling every shot for this movie.
No pun intended. Yeah. No, but here's the thing, though. If you're in charge and it's a large crew, whether your business be a milkman, company, or whatever the case may be, when you're in charge, what you do is you hand off authority to people around you that you trust, people that can tell you that this gun is safe, things like that. Does it really fall to the person at the top all the time? He was assured by his crew that everything was cool.
Al, do you want to jump in on this?
Well, I mean, the problem is that, everything goes downhill. Okay. So, he's going to say he had a right to rely on this, that, the other thing. But when it comes to gun safety, you cannot delegate that kind of safety to someone else. That's standard law. Okay. You cannot delegate safety to an employee. Okay. You are responsible. So if the gun was loaded, ultimately that person may be liable, but you are also liable. All right. It's respondent superior. It goes up the ladder, not necessarily just down the ladder. So you cannot delegate that. You cannot tell somebody, make sure the gun's not loaded. Okay. That's not enough. All right. That's why you see in these, like in product liability suits and stuff like that, it's always a situation where the guy, well, why did you take the guard off? Well, we took it off because the machine was easier to work when the safety guard was gone. Okay. And, then that must be the reason why you no longer have a right hand. Well, yeah, but, we were able to be more productive without the safety there. So the safety, guide. So it's not a situation that you can get away just saying that I delegated this to somebody. You cannot delegate safety.
Hey, Al, how much do you get in a lawsuit if you lose a hand? If it's your right hand and you're right-handed?
It could be millions.
Oh, yeah?
Multiple millions.
Ooh.
Oh, John, look at Jonesy looking for a new revenue stream right now.
Jonesey, what are you gonna do?
Hey, welcome to the Tangent Podcast with Al Wunsch, Vinnie Politan, and Lefty Jones.
Yeah, exactly. Captain Hook.
So here's the problem with Alec Baldwin, right? So, with the exception of Al, on my show, every lawyer I've had on says Alec Baldwin is not responsible. And then I reply to them and I say, is this the actor's exception to gun safety liability? Because who else can rely on someone else telling them the gun is not loaded and not be responsible for the gun if it is loaded? And the response is always, well, he's an actor. They hire people to do this to make sure it's safe for him, right? And he can just ask them. And then I ask actors and gun safety people who've been on the set of movies, and I say, well, how does this work? Well, whenever the gun goes from one party to the next, the party handing the gun to the next person independently makes sure the gun is safe. Either if they know how to do it, they check the gun themselves. If they don't know how to do it, then the person handing it to them will check it in front of them. So rather than me just say, Jonesy, it's not loaded, I will say, Jonesy, look, this gun's not loaded. And I open it up and I show you that it's not loaded. And now you can rely on that because you have independently, actually firsthand knowledge that the gun is not loaded because it was checked in front of you.
You don't hand it to someone like this. You don't hand it to them like this and just go, doesn't look loaded to me. Okay. Well, you know what? Let me pull the trigger and check to see if it's loaded. Bam. No, when you hand any type of firearm to someone, you always hand it to them in a way that you can see that it has been cleared. Okay. In this kind of a situation with regards to a 6-shooter, okay, you would take the cylinder out. Okay. And at that point, you would see that there was nothing in the cylinders. Okay. And you always check to see if there's something in the barrel. There's always that opportunity, not so much in a 6-shooter, but in some of the automatic weapons and things along those lines. So you always have to make sure it's clear. And it's not, like I said before, you can't delegate that. You can't say, because Vinnie's Vinnie's the gun guy, I know it's safe. You have to know, you have to always think the worst.
Don't police do that too? Like in training. Right? When one officer gives a gun to another officer, he's going to say, hey, it's not loaded. Have fun with it. No, they're going to,
you go to a shooting range, well, when you qualify as a police officer or anything along those lines, the weapon is always made safe before it is handed to another officer. Okay. It's standard. And I don't
assume, Jonesy, that it's not loaded.
When you assume, you make an ass out of you and me, as Felix Unger once famously said in the courtroom.
That's right.
And by the way, I would get a claw if I were to lose my hand. Not the craw, the claw.
The craw. Also, Matt Get Smart, right? That was Get Smart?
Yes. Oh, that was a brilliant one. Yes.
The craw.
What was the craw? I don't even know what that is.
That was the famous villain that from China or something like that. Yeah. He was known as the claw, but he would pronounce it the craw. Because it's the craw, right? So it was yes, because they were very, very sentimental on things like that back in.
It was a case of broken English.
Yeah, like they would call people, different names and things like that. Like Kale's Navy had a Japanese prisoner that they used to, do their laundry. Okay. And they were referred to as nips, okay, from the land of meat.
What are you doing?
I'm just saying, I'm talking about
to the last word.
Talking about history, okay, and it was in McHale's Navy, which is still on television, by the way.
Yeah, Hogan's Heroes was great with that too, with the stereotype.
Well, it's amazing that Hogan's Heroes could be made in the era that it was. It wasn't that long after the war when you think about it.
No, and Werner Klempner was forced out of Germany because he was Jewish. Okay, General Burkhalter was also forced out of Germany because he was Jewish. All of the German generals in Hogan's heroes were Jewish.
Well, from what I understand, they agreed to take the roles if the Germans were portrayed as buffoons.
And there certainly were in that television series. And that lasted, what, 6
I wonder if that series ever played in Germany.
I don't think they're allowed to mention that in Germany.
Oh, that's right. They're not even...
You know what? They would not. I don't think they would have been able to do that because there was actually at least 2 episodes where Larry Havis played Hitler.
The Fuhrer.
Yeah, he played the Fuhrer. There was at least 2 episodes where he played the Fuhrer.
Wow. It was interesting because we all watched that show, obviously growing up, but I mean, to a certain extent, I learned a little bit of history from that show.
What history, pray tell, did you learn from that?
But the terminology and stuff that was used, the Russian front and all that sort of stuff.
Russian, right. Okay, yeah, right.
There were certain little phrases that they threw around, and
I know nothing. I see nothing. But, John Banner was also Jewish, by the way.
Which one was Banner?
He was Schultz.
Sergeant Schultz. Okay. Yeah.
And LeBeau was in a French concentration camp.
What?
Yep. LeBeau was in a concentration camp.
Wow. So he's actually French.
Yeah, he's actually French. Yeah. Robert Cleary.
Fascinating. I'm trying to think. I saw a show. I think it was the show about the man who produced The Godfather, right? Didn't write it, but like the producer, right? So he's like putting the whole thing together with the money and everything for the studio. And I think that was one of his prior projects was Hogan's Heroes. And could you imagine being in that pitch meeting?
All right, I got an idea. We got this German concentration camp, okay, with American prisoners of war.
Wait, it's a comedy. It's a comedy.
Well, of course it's a comedy, because if you saw, it was based on Stalag
17.
17, right, Stalag 17. So it was based on that movie, okay, because they actually used some of the same things where they had a individual in there that was, undercover agent for the Germans, and was a spy and that stuff. So it was based on that. And if you remember, Stalag 17 was a phenomenal movie, okay, but it also had some comedic parts to it. So they figured that the audiences liked it, so that they could do something on a larger, on a more, larger scale, and have I think they went 6-7 years with that series. So,
well, in full disclosure, I'm an Alec Baldwin fan.
Wow. Okay. Well, in what respect and what program?
He has gotten himself in a lot of trouble and has a reputation of arrogance and such, and he has turned it into a living, breathing, a comedic thing, making fun of himself, not unlike William Shatner in that regard. I feel as though he's embraced like the dark side of himself and tried to lighten it, tried to like Vince McMahon portraying the bad guy in WWF. He has taken on that sort of vibe, I feel, and I enjoy his work. 30 Rock was hysterical. I remember that we covered some Alec Baldwin. The three of us covered an Alec Baldwin incident back on Court TV back in the early 2000s, I think it was, when he when they discovered some telephone calls to his wife concerning his child, and his language was just so incredibly abusive.
No, I think it was directly to his child. It wasn't even to his ex-wife. It was
it was to his child. It was directly
to his child. It was
he survived that, and it was brutal, and he survived it. Would he survive that today? Even if this never happened in a different society.
Yeah, but I admit he's got great comedic chops, and he's a dramatic actor too, as all comedians are. But I see him more like you do, Jonesy, as a comedian these days. But he can, chart it and do the drama. Where I get caught up is not so much in the work, but the off-screen time where
Right.
the arrogance just like you can appreciate, but sometimes, extreme arrogance can be endearing. But his to me is not. So I'm not a big fan, but I am glad that since the shooting, he's been talking a lot about it. And
Which is the worst thing you could do.
Which is
right?
the stupidest move in the history of mankind.
But,
I
but
mean,
it seems
it's
to have-
just so stupid. And that's an arrogance. That's an arrogance that has cost him an indictment. I mean,
But
that's
anything
what
he
it's
said,
done.
anything he said after April, in his defense, he thought that he was cleared at that point.
he was
With
saying stuff
executive
before.
lawsuits.
He was saying stuff before that he would
Yes.
never be charged.
He was doing interviews. He was doing interviews with anyone who wanted to talk to him.
Hey,
You
it's
don't
Hollywood.
do that. I hired an expert to take a look at this, and they cleared me.
Yeah.
Okay, so they go, yeah, the expert I hired cleared me. What a surprise! And let me ask
Okay.
you a question, Alec. If the expert didn't clear you, would you be talking about it?
And
Okay, so 30 years ago. Yeah, go ahead.
the armorer, and this is part of the problem of him being the executive producer. This was not the only shooting on the set of a live round. There were two others. I think that's going to be part of the problem is that this was a low budget movie. He's the executive producer, and there's some corners being cut. There's also proof or evidence or allegations that some of the people on the set walked off because they were concerned about the safety of what was going on. So it's the act of being responsible for having a weapon, a deadly weapon in your hand. But beyond that, there's also, I think, the fact, again, he's the man in charge, and this movie set was just rampant with I mean, it just doesn't happen. It should never happen. There should never be a live round anywhere near a movie set if you're going to use real weapons and not prop guns. If you're using real guns, then there should never be a live round anywhere. Now, the armorer, who is the person in charge of gun safety on the set, it will obviously be the one that he'll point to. But I think where she's going to go with this is point back at Alec Baldwin that he turned down some additional gun safety and they were kind of rushing things and cutting corners. So we'll see. She was inexperienced. I think this was only her first or second movie as an armor. She's a young kid. She has purple hair. Nothing wrong with purple hair. But I'm just saying, like, she's young. Like, she's super young. Her father's a legend in the business. But she also said that she had more responsibilities than just the gun safety for shooting a Western, which to me, that's a full-time job. But apparently she had other responsibilities. And I think that's another problem for Baldwin.
Well, Brandon Lee, when shooting The Crow, tragically died in an accident. Once again, I don't want to say killed. I don't know the legality of that, but he died in a tragic accident. Now I realize it's a complete different case and everything, but no charges were brought on that incident.
That's correct.
And
was that a blank? That was a blank.
That was a blank. Yeah, that was a
blank.
discharge.
That was a blank. So there was no bullet. It's just that the
Right.
blanks have a certain amount of material in them. And so it was a freak accident and there were no charges. But that actor who was involved with that, his name escapes me right now, was basically finished in the business. And I don't think he's even alive anymore. I think he passed away. But the incident with regards to the death of Vic Morrow, okay, and the two Vietnamese children
The Twilight Zone.
led to manslaughter charges and a conviction against, I believe it was John Landis, if I'm not mistaken. So and the it was the director and the producer, and they ended up being charged with manslaughter, and they were convicted.
It can happen. Now, what I have learned in covering this is that there's live rounds, there are blanks, and then there are dummy rounds.
Right.
And this gun, I believe, was supposed to be loaded with dummy rounds, and it had 5 dummies and 1 live round. Now, blanks and live rounds look very different, but dummy rounds and live rounds look more alike, and you have to individually sort of inspect them. And what happened was a live round got mixed up somehow with the dummy rounds by the armorer who loaded the weapon, and that's what happened. So to me, it's still not clear how that live round ended up mixed up in with these dummies, but it may have something to do with the fact that people were bringing live rounds on a set. There were also rumors that they were shooting cans in the desert during lunchtime. I don't know if that's true or not. We'll find out. But all of this, I look at it like, either we're going to charge everybody or no one. Okay? If we're charging the person, the armorer, and we're charging the assistant director who handed the gun to Alec Baldwin, you can't charge two people who handled the gun and not charge the person who fired the gun. So that's just the way I see it. Every lawyer guest sees it differently. If they indict, we'll see what the jury says. But it's I don't think you should go necessarily to prison for this. But there's clearly some criminal liability if there's liability for the other two. To me, it's all three or none of them.
I don't disagree with that.
Look at that. We agree, Mr. Jones. We agree.
Well, I won't agree because I like Alec Baldwin. And I'm not a lawyer, though I don't have to.
You won't be on the jury. Let's dismiss him from the jury right now.
He can beat up photographers and he can do those kind of things with impunity for you?
I like to separate art from a person's personal behavior,
person's weaponry.
So I will decline answering that because I've always separated the artist work from what they are in private life, whether it be politically or I'm the guy who still plays Michael Jackson. I'm the guy who still plays R. Kelly because it's a good song. At least one of them is. So what can I say?
Did they do any duets? Did those two ever do any duets? And if they did, what would be the name of the song?
Well, not in real time, they didn't. But we'll see what happens in the future. I'm sure some producers in the studio somewhere getting ready to pair them off.
Yeah, and the reason I say all or none when it comes to crime, I have a hard time with prosecuting accidents as a general rule.
Right.
I think civil liability to me is automatic.
I feel that way about police officers.
But that's where we are now in the law. Like a police officer makes a mistake, they get criminally prosecuted. So I think if actors make a mistake, they should be prosecuted.
I will agree with you on that.
Police officers.
In most cases with police incidents, my take on it is that guy did not get up and go to work and decide I'm going to shoot somebody today.
This just in. The song that was done, a collaboration between R. Kelly and Michael Jackson is "You're Under 16, You're Beautiful, and You're Mine." Okay, so that was the name of the song.
Well, I'm glad you went there because there are a million funny answers to that, and I was afraid to go there.
Put them in the comments, folks. Put them in the comments.
There you go. Well, that's been our episode of The Tangent. And Vinnie, say goodnight, Vinnie.
Good night, Vinnie.